Hi, Pastor Mark Driscoll here in what remains of Laodicea. It's hard to see it today because the excavations continue in this abandoned city, but in the days of the New Testament, it was a very prosperous, significant town located on a primary trade route. The excavations around me are showing some of the ancient businesses. This would have been a main thoroughfare. People would walk through here to conduct business and to go about their affairs and to see who was passing through town. And what would happen then is the shops would be filled with people doing business, and behind those would have been the homes of the people who actually owned the homes. The wealthy people would live as close to town as they could. This was a strategically important city. It is the thoroughfare for a number of other major cities, or was in its day. It's interesting that the book of Revelation includes this town among the 7 churches of Revelation and the 7 letters written by John on behalf of Jesus. The letter in Revelation includes some very pointed criticisms. They are called lukewarm. Many Christians have heard this frequently, that God does not want us to be lukewarm. That idea is actually taken from their water source. As you can observe, we're on a very high place. There is no natural water source as we're here on an elevated plain. And so the water would have been piped in. And one location had warm, hot water that was a spring that continues to this day. And the primary hotel for the region includes a hot spring in its basement where people come for medicinal and recreational purposes. And so those hot springs continue to this day. Coming down from the mountains as well, there was also a cold water river. And so in either event, they would have to pipe that water in some miles, either from the hot or the cold source, the result being that by the time it hit Laodicea, it was lukewarm. It wasn't warm enough to bathe in, it wasn't cold enough to drink, it was unpleasant. And so when Jesus says that the Christians here were lukewarm, he is giving them an idea that they are to him as their water is to them. Very unpleasant and unusable. Additionally, a few things are said about them where they say that they are rich in Revelation. Jesus says, in fact, they are poor. This would have been absolutely stunning to the people because financially, though not spiritually, they were exceedingly wealthy. This was a very, very, very prosperous town. In fact, a number of earthquakes destroyed cities throughout this region, including this town. And the other cities took money from the government to rebuild their cities, but this city rejected government funds, and out of its own wealth, affluence, and pride, they actually rebuilt this town with their own dollars. So they were exceedingly wealthy. And Jesus says, though they have financial wealth, they are spiritually impoverished. Also, he says that they are blind. Now, physically they could see, but spiritually they were blind to the things of God. And the blindness that he speaks of would have been particularly noteworthy because in this area there was a large research center for medicine. There was a well-known hospital, and one of the most famous things that was created in this region was in fact an eye salve that would help cure blindness and vision problems, and he uses that ideology to teach them that even though they are the center of research for sight, they are spiritually blind. Thirdly, he says that they are naked, and this would have been something of a shock when you think of the fact that this entire region was filled with black sheep, very rare black sheep. Their wool would have been used for clothing, and this made them a center for textiles and for clothing manufacturing, yet Jesus says that they are in fact naked in his sight. And so all of this culminates together, and we see that John had a keen idea of what was going on here in Laodicea, that Jesus was keenly aware of exactly how these people were behaving spiritually. He contextualizes his message, telling them that though they are proud of their good health and their beautiful city and their affluent wealth, that in the eyes of God, they are just blind, they are poor, and they are naked. This is one church that Jesus has nothing kind to say anything to or about, and perhaps in one of the most condemning statements in all of Scripture, we see Jesus standing outside of the door of the church, knocking, banging on the door, hoping that the church would let him in. It was one of those dead, lukewarm churches, like so many in our present day, who were rejecting Jesus, and they preferred their wealth and their affluence and their opulence to Jesus. And as we look at it today, it gives us some scope that truly where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. And sadly, for many in Laodicea, their heart was here, their treasure is here, and there is nothing left. And so they missed a wonderful opportunity to enjoy the grace and the salvation that Jesus alone provides. And ultimately, this city was judged by him, and the ruins show us that heaven should be our home, and Jesus should be our priority, and lukewarmness should be our enemy.